Hey folks, it's Rob, and welcome back. We're continuing our series today on the Monstrous Compendium Appendix for the Mystara setting. This book is from 1994 from Classic TSR, and we're on page 38 of this. We're on approximately 120-page book, so we're getting about a third of the way through the work today so far. And right now we're in Elemental of Chaos. Previously, we did the Elemental of Chaos for air and earth, and we have presented to us the Elemental of Chaos, fire and water. These are oppositional elements, in case you're wondering. Fire and water don't mix. Earth and, you know, earth and air also, obviously don't mix, right? But you know, these the whole elemental thing gets expanded on in way past the basic set of the game, obviously. And this is really originally meant for a second edition Dungeons and Dragons, this book. So, again, our stats are going to be for that. But I feel translating the game is only trickiest when dealing with alignment. Otherwise, these monsters are readily usable. So, Elemental Chaos, fire/water. We have here in our pictures the Pyrophore and the Undine. Some people say Undine, and I can totally see how that would be valid, what with the E on the end. I believe I've only ever heard of it referred to as an Undine, but Undine is perfectly valid, and don't, whatever. But so we have our readily apparent, like, flaming ball of whatever. That's the pyrophore, right? Seems to have a suggestion of a face on it. Seems to be on fire. It has a kind of rocky core. Next to it is I'm gonna continue to say Undine. Sorry, that's just my basic approach to it. The Undine seems to be a bit more washed out in the scan than it is here in my hand, as I am referring to the print text, as always, as I read this, and just using the PDF version for simplicity of display. So, because, if you actually want to read this, you're gonna have a much better chance of reading this off the PDF than you are watching my hands move over the of the book on the desk in front of me. But also, I don't want to have to crush this book flat for every page. It will just simply destroy the cheap binding they did for these kind of books at this time. It is simply kind of a glue base, right? These are not stitched by any means, and I want this book to last. So yeah, this is how we're doing it, as always. So, but yeah, the Undine is a little washed out looking. It's, it is certainly clear. It's meant to be a water creature. It's, it has there's more and darker blue lines visible in the print copy than you can see here, but it doesn't give a bad impression of the creature. A twisted column of water is certainly a fairly accurate description, I feel. But we'll get into it. So, our Pyrophore and our Undine. Climate /terrain for the Pyrophore is any fire, and in the Undine, any water. Frequency is very rare in each case. The Pyrophores have tribes, while the Undines are solitary. They are both active anytime, while Pyrophores dine on fire, apparently. Undines dine on water. Pyrophores are very intelligent at 12, while Undines are only average intelligent at 10. Neither has treasure, unfortunately for your party. Alignment, chaotic evil for the Pyrophore, while Undines are chaotic good. And again, if you were to try to translate this for basic, because that's really kind of what our focus of this stage, my focus is 20th century gaming in a lot of ways, to be in the broadest sense. But we were in basic, Red Box 1983 basic, and where we're here. And I'm probably going to go back to basic on the next project, but that's going to be a while off because this has already been, what, no more than 10 videos. Um, but alignment is a 3-flavor system in basic. And I keep coming to this point because these all have complex alignments. But basically, chaotic is, it's neutral, lawful, neutral, and chaotic, right? They don't make the distinction of evil or good. And functionally, that means that lawful tends to be the good guys and chaotic tends to be the bad guys. But you do get odd exceptions of, while they are chaotic, they aren't necessarily evil, right? Um, or while they are lawful, they aren't necessarily nice. Uh, and that you can take that extension here to advanced Dungeons and Dragons. While these are both chaotic creatures, that is their approach to law and order. They are opposed at evil and good, right? And that affects their general behavior and response to the party, right? So the Pyrophore, you get 1d6 plus 1 appearing, while the Undine, being solitary, is only 1 appearing. The Pyrophore, armor class 3, while the Undine is armor class 4. And again, in this armor class system, 4 is easier to hit than 3 by 1 point. Movement, 12 on ground for the Pyrophore. Flying, 36. Doesn't give him maneuverability. We'll have to see if the description covers any of that, but I'm going to assume, since it's an elemental, full maneuverability for flying, unless it says otherwise. The Undine is movement 9 on the ground because it's a squishy water creature, but swimming 24. And there's no like maneuverability mechanic for swimming, but assume it can turn on a dime, right? Hit dice for the Pyrophore is 7, while for the Undine is 8. To hit AC 0 for the Pyrophore is 13, while for the Undine it is 11. The Pyrophore gets 2 attacks, the Undine only gets 1. Pyrophore attacks are 2d6 slashes. Lashes, right? So the flame whips out, right? Meanwhile, the Undine has a 2d8 fist or a 1d10 coil, right? It probably, in the special attacks, the Pyrophore has fire and spells, while the Undine has spells and constriction. So it will, the 1d10 coil will be it's wrapping around the target, right? Special defenses, see below. They are elementals, so they're going to have certain basic defenses. Magic resistance, they have none. The Pyrophore is size medium, about 5 foot across. So, despite that being medium, a 5 foot wide ball is, considerable. The Undines are long, being 12 foot long. Probably a bit on the sinuous side, right? But this is how we handle our size mechanic. Morale for the Pyrophore is steady at 12, while for the Undine, elite at 13. And XP for the Pyrophore is 3,000, while the Undine has 4,000. Getting into the description. The elementals of chaos are intelligent beings native to one of the 4 elemental planes. Each elemental pursues its own interests vigorously with little, if any, care for order or on either its home plane or the prime material plane. Now, again, the prime material plane is basically the world around us as we experience it in the game. Elemental planes are dimensions of just pure that, right? Fire, water, earth, air. Now, is there possibly found some chunks of rock in the air elemental plane? Yes. Much like you can find probably fire and water, but it's not the main constituent of that environment. Going to stop with the tangent. All elementals of chaos are immune to poison, normal weapons, and first and second level spells. They also can cast detect invisibility at will. Elementals of chaos cast spells at the 9th level of ability. I'm going to start with the Pyrophore. Their eerily shifting features make pyrophores appear as flickering coals 5 foot in diameter, with fingers of flame that periodically flare out. These natives of the elemental plane of fire move very quickly and, in the air, resemble small meteors. Combat. Every pyrophore loves to cause fire on the prime material plane. In battle, they always attempt to set their opponents on fire by lashing out with spiky finger flames. A pyrophore can attack twice per round, causing 2d6 points of damage with each hit. In addition, a target a fiery appendage has hit must make a successful saving throw versus wands or burst into flames. Objects that normally don't burn, like metal and stone, receive a +4 bonus to the saving throw. The fire causes 1d6 points of damage each round until put out. Victims must spend 1d4 rounds rolling on the ground or 1 round immersed in water to douse the flames. Pyrophores are immune to all fire-based attacks and can use the following spells 3 times per day: Detect Magic, Dispel Magic, Melts Minute Meteors, and Firestorm. They also can cast Affect Normal Fires at will. These elementals always suffer maximum damage from water-based attacks. Now, you'll need to come up with a damage for like them just basically like throwing bottles of water or water casks or buckets of water at the monster. Judge it for yourself how effective that is, but it is water, right? It is the opposite element that it should be encountering, but even though it can eat fire, it doesn't eat water, right? Undines eat water. Don't throw buckets of water on the Undine. But, much like don't throw fire at the pyrophore. But, in the opposite case, think of what you would consider the reasonable amount of damage caused by the thing that's being used. For example, if you had a decanter of endless water, it will be jetting water at the pyrophore. Much like an extinguisher or a fire hose, right? That's got to be devastating. Habitat/society. Pyrophores, perhaps the most cavalierly violent of all the elementals, revel in the destructive powers of fire. They often use their abilities in malicious play, bathing parts of the prime material plane in purifying flame. Ecology. Bothering the lawful Hylians always sounds like a lot of fun to a pyrophore. They fear water-type creatures and water attacks, particularly hate the Hydrax and Undines. Undines reside on the elemental plane of water and rarely visit the prime material plane. On its home plane, an Undine normally looks like a featureless, transparent snake. It can change shape easily, sometimes adopting a form with many tentacles to handle objects. Once per turn, an Undine can spend up to 5 rounds swimming quickly. Movement rate of 48 in the form of a spinning coil. These elementals remain invisible while immersed in water. I believe the first time I read about one, it was in a fountain. And boy, that would be a surprise if you encountered one. Combat. An Undine can attack using a fist-like pod by constricting or with spells. Using its fist, the creature can attack once per round. If the blow hits, it causes 2d8 points of damage. The Undine then can coil around its opponent, squeezing for 1d10 points of automatic constriction damage per round. The elemental can coil around any creature of giant size or less, rendering its foe unable to move, attack, or concentrate. Concentrate is a mechanism in 2nd edition and Advanced Dungeons & Dragons that is involved the use of spells. So you can't maintain a spell or power that requires concentration if your concentration is broken, and you can't start new spells if you've been interrupted. Just to clarify, because basically Basic doesn't have that kind of thing per se. Sometimes it's in a spell description. Like, I believe you need to like concentrate to use like ESP power spells. But yeah, it's a simple enough thing to keep in mind. An Undine also can cast the following spells up to 3 times per day: Detect Magic, Web, Dispel Magic, Ice Storm, and Transmute Dust to Water. An Undine's web, made of ice strands, functions in the same way as one from a normal web spell. However, flame melts the strands rather than burning them, and trap victims suffer no damage. The Undine itself is immune to all water-based attacks, but fire-based attacks cause the creature double the normal amount of damage. While in the prime material plane, an Undine regenerates 3 hit points per round while in water. When out of water, however, the creature loses 1 point per round from drying. Habitat/Society. The solitary Undines possess a philosophy similar to that of the Jinn, to aid those whom they consider worthy. Little is known of the Undine's social structure or ultimate goals, if they have any at all. Ecology. Undines count Hellions and Hordes as enemies, and fear all fire-based beings and flame attacks. I feel like the Undine got the short end of the stick here, but, it's roughly about equivalent amount of description. Let's move forward to page 39. Here we have the first elemental of law, in this case, elementals, air/earth. And it appears, at first glance, we only have one image. But actually, we have 2 images. We have a kind of, this is really hard to make out in the scan, but this has got a face on it. It's a bit like it's got a bit of a beard here and a fat, wide nose here and a large brow here. And, it's got a bit of hair, right? And maybe a suggestion of an ear over here. And that's in the middle. And that's going to be our, probably Anemo, right? The air elemental. While around it is the earth elemental, the Christ, right? And again, I wish the scan was a little stronger, right? So I feel like that's a quite nice image of an air elemental, but it is also almost completely lost in this scan, and it's disappointing. But we're going to move forward. So, and this time I feel like I'm just going to read them straight down in each case in this from the stat block, so bear with me, because I don't know. I feel like reading them from across was probably not the right thing to do. So the Anemo, any air climate, frequency, very rare. They are in flocks, apparently. Activity cycle, any. Their diet is air. They are very intelligent at 12. They have no treasure. They are lawful neutral in alignment. Number appearing 1d6, armor class 1, movement 12, but flying 36 with an A maneuverability granted this time. Hit dice 9. To hit AC 0, 11. Number of attacks 3. So you get, looks like 3 1d10 whip attacks. Special attacks are spells. Maybe I have the monsters backwards. I'm wondering. Because the flame creature could very well be the air creature. I don't know. I keep getting distracted. I apologize, dear viewer / listener, whatever you are out there in, YouTube land. Sometimes I am easily distracted by thoughts. Special attacks are spells. Special defenses are C below. Magic resistance is nil. They are size medium, about 5 foot across. Morale is elite at 14, and XP value is 6,000. For the Christ, any earth climate. They are also very rare. They are in clusters instead of flocks. Any activity cycle, they enjoy eating earth and rock, apparently. Their intelligence is average at 10. They have no treasure. They are lawful good. 1d6 appear. Their armor class is 2. Movement is 24, just across the ground. Hit dice 9. To hit AC 0 is 11. They also get 3 attacks of 3 1d12 spikes, each spike being 1d12. Special attacks are spells. Special defenses are again see below, probably the usual elemental resistances. Magic resistance, nil. They are a size medium, but 6 feet across. Morale is elite at 14, and again the XP value is 6,000. Elementals of law are intelligent creatures native to one of the 4 elemental planes. Each dedicates itself to maintaining the forces of law on both its home plane and the prime material plane, yet they differ wildly in their methods of achieving this goal. All elementals of law are immune to poison, normal weapons, and first and second level spells. They can also cast Detect Invisibility at will. Alright. The Anemo. Anemo, native to the elemental plane of air, direct their energies at creating order from the raw stuff of chaos. These cottony-looking creatures, approximately 5 feet around, consist of a complex and ordered network of off-white fibers. Their extremely light bodies enable them to perform unbelievably dexterous aerial maneuvers. So yeah, the cloud creature in the middle. Fair enough. Combat. An Anemo has little fear of battle, choosing to fight whoever aids the forces of chaos. In combat, an Anemo usually attacks by forming itself into a whirlwind, whipping its opponents with a multitude of thin, abrasive fibers. It can attack up to 3 times per round, causing 1d10 points of damage with each assault. The Anemo is immune to all air-based attacks. It can use Detect Magic, Dispel Magic, Solid Fog, and Wind Wall, each 3 times per day at 9th level. In addition, it can cast Control Winds at 15th level and Aerial Servant, which cannot attack the elemental, once per day. And Anemo remains vulnerable to earth-based attacks, suffering +3 damage per die. Now, I will say, an air-based attack would be something like Cloud Kill, Stinking Cloud, Those are probably, not something we've had on the channel yet, but if you're an experienced gamer, you're familiar with those spells. Habitat/Society. Each Anemo works closely with others of its kind, forever attempting to catalog and order all of existence. These creatures are the most likely of all elementals of law to be found outside their home plane. Ecology. Anemos hate all creatures of chaos, particularly the elementals of chaos, I would say themselves, especially pyrophores. They dislike invisible stalkers as well. They fear earth-based creatures and earth-based attacks. Now, they can summon invisible servants. But invisible stalkers they hate. Okay, fair enough. So, for the Christ. Christs, intelligent beings native to the elemental plane of Earth, have bodies made of quartz-like rock. Each Christ looks like a group of 12 golden crystal spikes, all projecting outward from a central point. I gotta say, this is not what's portrayed here. Is that just like a wall of flame, really, around this thing? Really? We couldn't put it... Okay. A Christ normally speaks via telepathy, 120-foot range. If mental contact causes a poor reaction, it accommodates others by switching to written communication. It etches messages with one of its spikes. Although a Christ never enters a battle without first determining if it has no better option, it fights fiercely once committed. These elementals normally attack by ramming their opponents repeatedly with their long spikes. A Christ can attack in this manner up to 3 times per round, causing 1d12 points of damage with each successful hit. Christs are immune to all earth-based attacks and can use Detect Magic, Dispel Magic, Wall of Stone, and Transmute Rock to Mud 3 times per day. In addition, Christs can cast Stone Tell once per day. They cast all spells at 9th level. Krists remain very vulnerable to air-based attacks, suffering double damage from them. Habitat/society. Krists have widespread and complex society of their own realms, peacefully living with and helping Earth elementals. They welcome visitors and eagerly seek new knowledge of all types. Ecology. These elementals fear and hate the hordes, with whom they wage a never-ending war. They are also enemies of the Hydrax, though they rarely encounter them. All Krists fear air-based attacks and air-based creatures and air-based attacks, although they view no group of these beings as particular enemies. Well, it's disappointing that this is actually just the one monster portrayed. Surely you'd want to be consistent, right? But so is life. Oh, here it is on the next page. So I'm guessing it's mixed up. In fact, that's probably a Hellion. This ring of fire is probably a Hellion. Meanwhile, this is the Krist. I swear, 90s TSR. I love you. I love you. I do. I do. I do love you. But sometimes you really, really frustrate me. I'm going to complete this here, page 40, and we're going to wrap up the video. But keep in mind, this is a Hellion, which we're about to describe, and this is a Krist, which we have described. Right. Okay, moving forward. Elemental of law, fire/water. And our water creature is this crab-like being, the Hydrax. So I'm going to run down the main line again for each item, and then we're going to, go through the general descriptions. Hellion is climate terrain is any fire. They are very rare. They have a family organization. Activity cycle any. Diet is fire. They have a high intelligence, 14. Treasure nil. Their alignment is lawful good. 1d4 plus 1 appear with an armor class of 1. Movement 9 on the ground, but flying 24 with an A maneuverability. Hit dice 9. To hit AC 0, 11. Number attacks 1. And it's a 2d8 squeeze. Their special attacks are spells and trap. Special defenses see below, probably the usual elemental items. Magic resistance nil. Their size is quite variable, from tiny to gigantic, 1 foot to 40 foot diameter. They are of elite morale at 14 and have a 6,000 XP value. The Hydrax, to contrast, is climate terrain is any water, oddly enough. Their frequency is very rare. They are solitary, again. Activity cycle any. Diet is ice. Not just water, but ice. Intelligence is very intelligent at 12. They have no treasure. Their alignment is either lawful evil or lawful neutral. 1 will appear, what would being solitary. Armor class 2. Movement 6 on the ground, but swimming 18. Hit dice is variable between 5 and 12. And you can see the charts are expanded out here, so, to hit AC 0 for a 5 or 6 hit die is 15, 7 to 8 is 13, 9 to 10 is 11, 11 to 12 is 9. They get 2 attacks of a d10 each, being those pinchy claws on the front there. Special attacks are by spell. Special defenses are see below. Magic resistance, it doesn't have any. It is a large creature, 8 foot wide ice crab, basically. Morale elite at 14. XP value for the 5 hit die, 1,400. 6, 2,000. 7, 3,000. 8, 4,000. 9, 5,000, 10, 6,000, 11, 7,000, and 12 hit dice, 8,000. The most of any of these elemental of alignment we've had so far. Continuing the description below the stat block, the elementals of law are intelligent creatures native to one of the 4 elemental planes. Each dedicates itself to maintaining the forces of law on both its home plane and the prime material plane, yet they differ wildly in their methods of achieving this goal. All elementals of law are immune to poison, normal weapons, and first and second level spells. They also can cast detect invisibility at will. The individual descriptions begin on the column here. So we'll start with the Helion, which we will again refresh you that this is the Helion here, this ring of fire. Helions, and you can give us a pronunciation guide for the first time in this group, Helions, yep, are native to the elemental plane of fire, and characters rarely encounter them elsewhere. These extremely good creatures shun violence of all sorts. A Helion normally looks like a huge 20-foot in diameter ring of pulsating flame. However, Helions can twist their bodies in an extraordinary range of motion and can shrink down to a mere 1 foot across or expand their diameters to 40 feet. Combat. Helions loathe combat, and even in the midst of battle, constantly search for a more peaceful resolution to conflict. When in combat, a Helion attempts to form a ring around its opponent. On a successful attack roll, the elemental shrinks around the victims in a trap. Helion can control its own temperature and will not burn a trapped victim. It can squeeze its captured foe for 2d8 points of damage per round, but it rarely tries to damage opponents this way, preferring to negotiate peaceful terms. A Helion can use Detect Magic, Dispel Magic, Wall of Fire, and Purifying Flame, works as a cure disease spell, 3 times per day. Additionally, a Helion can cast Affect Normal Fires at will. It casts all spells at 9th level. Helions, though immune to all flame-based attacks, remain vulnerable to water-based attacks from which they suffer double damage. Habitat/Society. Helions form tight community groups known as rings. Each ring has 1d4 plus 1 members. Rings of Helions move methodically about the elemental plane of fire, meeting to discuss and debate philosophical matters of all kinds. Ecology. The Helions are famed philosophers and negotiators. In times of great crisis, brave adventurers journey to the elemental plane of fire to find aid for their people. The main foes of Helions include the Ifrit and the elementals of chaos. Excuse me, we're going to have a small sip. Pushing myself here for the 3rd page. The Hydrax, which I feel got the short shrift here. Hydraxes are native to the elemental plane of water, and of all the elementals of law, they seem the least likely to venture from their home plane. These large, crab-like creatures of deep blue ice have 8-foot bodies with 6 legs and 2 claws. Combat. In battle, the Hydrax attacks with either its 2 icy claws, causing 1d10 points of damage each, or with spells. It can cast Detect Magic, Web, Dispel Magic, Wall of Ice, and transmute dust to water 3 times per day. Once per week, it may also use Reflecting Pool at the level at which it casts the others. As a 9th level spellcaster, Hydraxes are immune to all water-based attacks, but suffer maximum damage from fire-based attacks. Habitat/Society. Hydraxes are solitary creatures who, though lawful in behavior, tend to align with the forces of evil. They spend much of their time creating complex cities and devices of great beauty with tools made of ice. They seldom work together on such efforts, however. Each Hydrax instead waits its turn to add their strange group efforts. It waits its turn to add to their strange group efforts, yes. Interesting. Ecology. The most common enemies of the Hydraxes are the Undines and the Urdines. The crab-like elementals fear earth-type creatures and earth attacks, particularly those of the Erdines. And that is going to be our segment for the day. Next time will be an interesting item on familiars, which is a double pager and probably going to be the occupation of the video. But that'll be next time. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope you're having a great day, or that it improves. See us next time. Goodbye.